Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. You know what? I actually think I need to fix something. Give me one sec. All right, I think we are ready now. So I am wearing my Hocus Pocus shirt, which can only mean one thing, and that is that it is finally time for summerween. And if you're not familiar with summerween or you've never seen someone make this type of reading vlog, summerween is an opportunity to read some fall or horror, October, Halloween themed books in the middle of summer because we're all kind of having that desire for summer weather to go away and for fall to move in. So I am planning to do a couple fall activities this week and read some fall themed books, which I am so excited about because I could not be more ready for it to be fall. So let's talk about the books that I have set aside as contenders for this week. So we'll talk about my Libby options first. So I did borrow two audiobooks on Libby that are contenders for this week. And to be honest with you, I do think I will get through both of these because I've been trying to do a lot better with limiting my screen time and spending more time listening to audiobooks when I can't physically read, as opposed to playing videos on my phone or mindlessly kind of swiping through and playing stuff while I'm doing other activities. So I do think I will get to both of these. And the first one is going to be Guillotine by Delilah Dawson, which I do have another book by Delilah Dawson on this list as well. I have a physical copy, but this is a relatively short audiobook. And our main character really wants to work in fashion. Her backstory is that she is a designer, she makes her own clothes, and she is trying to get involved with a pretty high society family through means of dating a son in the family because the matriarch of the family is a very famous fashion designer. So she starts kind of seeing this guy and goes to visit his family, and then things go awry. So that's all I really know about that one, but I do think that's going to be the first audiobook that I jump into this week because it is shorter and I think it'll really help me to get in the Halloween spooky season mood quickly. And then the second audiobook that I've borrowed from Libby is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. And I previously read Everyone in My Family Has Killed Somebody or Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by the same author, which is technically the first book in this series. And I read that for a book club a while back and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very different approach to narration, and I did physically read that one, but I heard that the audiobook was a lot of fun. So when I saw that this audiobook for the second book in that series was available, I went ahead and picked it up for this week because I think it will be a really fun time trying to figure out who done it. And this time for the second adventure in this series, the characters will be trapped on a train, a crime will be committed, and then they're going to have to figure out who done it before time runs out. So definitely just a classic mystery who done it kind of thriller, and I really anticipate that I'm going to enjoy this one because I did enjoy the previous one. And then the third contender that I have from Libby is Heartwood by Amity Gage. And it just so happened that I had a hold for this book and it became available for me to borrow this week. So I may get to that. But Heartwood is also a thriller and it's set in Maine. And I know that there is some backstory about a hiker who went missing. But other than that, I really don't know anything about this book other than that it is a thriller and I've heard a lot of people talking about it. So I was really excited that that came up just in time for this week, but that will be another contender on the list. And now we'll just kind of rapid fire go through some of the physical books that I have. I'm not going to give you too much backstory on them, but if I do pick them up to read them in the video, we'll talk a little bit more about the synopsis and the plot when the time comes. So the first book that I set aside was The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab, which I have been reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil for a book club recently, and V.E. Schwab is one of my favorite authors. I picked this one up last year because I had never heard of The Near Witch when I heard people talking about any of her work, and it's a little bit shorter and a little bit different of a story compared to what I have read from her so far, so that's why this one is a contender for this week. Next, I have You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, which I picked up off of a table at Barnes& and Noble last fall because it was on sale as part of a mystery thriller sale. And I honestly think this would be a fun, quick read for this week that I meant to get to last October. So this is a really good contender to get off of the TBR. The Spirit Bears Its Teeth is one that I believe that I've heard Lexi or Newly Nova talk about. And if it wasn't Lexi, it was Plant Based Bride or Elizabeth. But whoever I heard talking about this one really sold me on the book. And I think this would be a little bit more like grimdark, think kind of like the Shepherd King duology, kind of that type of vibe and setting. So I'm really interested to get into this one. And then on a lighter note, I have the X Hex. So I figured a little witchy romance might be a perfect fit for this week if I just need something a little bit lighthearted that's not super like horror or thriller to break things up. And then I also have Carmilla, which is a sapphic romance that is said to have inspired Dracula. So it is a vampire story. And this is one that I've wanted to read for a long time. It's honestly super, super short. So I'm really hoping to get to this one this week. It is really high on my priorities as far as the TBR goes. And then again, for something that I think will be a little lighter, I also have Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which I recently hauled. I talked about this a lot in my recent book haul video, but I do think this one would be really fun to read, and it's definitely very different. So I think that would be a good change of pace if I'm needing to switch things up. And then I have a second Delilah Dawson book on the TBR. I have been searching and hunting for this book for a long time, so I'm very excited to have a physical copy now. And I think if I really enjoy Guillotine, that there is a pretty good chance that this will end up being a book that I read in this video as well. And then the final contender for this week is going to be Overgrowth by Mira Grant. Now, Mira Grant is one of my absolute favorite horror writers. I love her brand of sci-fi horror. I feel like she's doing stuff that no one else is doing, and I recently hauled this. It is her most recent release, so I would really like to get to this week. I will say this is probably the largest book page number wise on the TBR, so it might be hard for me to get this in, but I would really like to. So definitely also high on the priority list. So now that we've discussed the TBR, I think to kick things off, I want to pick my first books that I'm going to read. So I already decided that I want to start with Guillotine by Delilah Dawson as my audiobook that I'm going to kick the week off with. But I also think that I want to start with Carmilla because I really want to set the tone for Halloween and spooky season. And honestly, vampire novels are one of my favorite things to read during the fall. So I'm going to start with Guillotine and Carmilla, and I will update you once I have read a little bit of both of these. Friends, so time for an update. So as I mentioned, I did start Guillotine by Delilah Dawson, and I already finished it. So that is my first book finished for our summerween reading vlog, and I think I gave a pretty good overview of the book in the intro to the video. But just as a quick reminder, our main character in Guillotine is a woman who is a fashion designer, and she's really trying to break into the world of fashion design. And so she meets a guy whose mom is like the head of this big like fashion design company or magazine. And so she's very influential in like the fashion world, and she doesn't really like the guy, but she's gonna try to date him so that she can get more involved and get introduced to his mom. And it happens that he is about to go to his family's private island for Easter, and she kind of works her way in so that she can go with him. And then once they're on the island, she really starts to see how terrible of a person he is, and that there are super weird vibes around his family, and then everything kind of goes to hell. So if you are someone who really enjoys seeing a revenge story where men in particular have been wronging people and they kind of get their comeuppance, I would say that this is a really good read for you. I'm a really big fan of saying that I support women's rights and women's wrongs, and obviously there's more than just women involved in this, but it was really satisfying to see how this book played out from start to finish. The audiobook is only 5 hours, so it was a super, super quick read, and honestly, I feel like that was just what I needed to kick this week off right. So I did finish that, and I rated it 4.25 stars. So with that done, I went ahead and moved on to the second audiobook that I borrowed, which is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. And I previously read the first book in this series, and so far I am really enjoying the experience of listening to the book instead of reading it. I think that it really brings a lot to the character, since the narrator is really speaking directly to the reader in this book, and it's not the type of story where you're kind of seeing things from a bird's eye view. It really makes you feel like the narrator is talking directly to you. And I'm now a little bit over a quarter of the way into that book, so I'll definitely keep you up to date. I am probably going to listen to more of that tonight. As part of Summerween, I wanted to do some fall activities or feel a little bit more fall-ish. So I bought some stuff to make peanut butter cookies and Hershey Kisses to go on top of them. That's a really popular cookie recipe, I feel like, for around the holidays, but I think they make super cute little witches hats because you've got like the brim as the cookie and then you've got the Hershey's Kiss on top. So I'll definitely take you guys with me when I go to make those, but I do plan to listen to more of my audiobook when I'm doing that. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then in addition to my audiobooks, I also did start Carmilla, and I didn't take this book to work with me today, and I literally have been thinking about getting home to continue reading this all day. So I am super excited to continue and pick up where I left off. This is a pretty short book, and I just started it last night before bed. I read a little bit, and I'm about 20% of the way into the book. So I do anticipate that I will read the rest of this really quickly, but I already immediately feel like I am in the like spooky season vibes with everything that I've already started to read for Summerween. So I am really excited to continue this. I'm loving the way that this is written. There's something about like a classic horror or like gothic novel that really speaks to me. So I am loving reading this. It's been a long time since I have read a book like this, and one of my favorite books of all time is Interview with a Vampire, so this is really making me feel like I'm kind of back into that type of setting and world. So I'm really excited to continue this a little bit more, and I did grab some apple cider so that I can continue reading and enjoy a nice fall beverage. And of course I had to break out my Halloween mug, so very excited to keep reading. So that's all I'm gonna say. guess you're getting a quick update with me and Zoe. I don't know why she's just lurking back here. All right. Anyways, so I wasn't expecting this, but I finished Everyone on This Train is a Suspect today. I was actually building some furniture at work. I just had some extra time to listen to my audiobook while I was at work today, and I ended up really enjoying that. And shockingly, I didn't see the end coming for that book, which I know I've mentioned is something that's normally difficult for me. Normally, I see the end coming, so I thought the way that it ended was really cute, and I liked the way that the story went. But I had only borrowed those two audiobooks from Libby because I wasn't expecting to finish them. So fortunately, I am a lot better at using Libby now than I used to be, and I was able to filter for audiobooks that are available now in the thriller and horror genre. And I wasn't planning to get into any Stephen King, but they did have a couple of his standalones available to listen to. So I went ahead and picked up The Outsider by Stephen King on Libby, and the book starts off with a really gruesome murder happening to a child in this town, and there are tons of eyewitness statements corroborating that this one man in town did it, but he has a solid alibi and he has no idea what has happened with the crime. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is that he's been arrested and they're interrogating him and everything's kind of coming out. And so far, I'm really enjoying the book. I'm really interested to see what happened, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be paranormal in nature, so I'm really, really excited for that. But just wanted to give you an update. So now I am reading The Outsiders on audiobook, and I will most likely finish Carmilla today. So I totally forgot that I got these pecan turtle cookies, so I actually decided to start by making these before doing the peanut butter cookies, because these were just pre-made in the package and could just go straight in the oven, where I had to do some prep with the peanut butter cookies. And I ended up making the peanut butter cookies a little bit later, but hey, they still got done. Unfortunately, instinct told me that this was going to be way too many cookies on one sheet and that they were all going to melt into one another. So I did separate them into two sheets, and then I just did this little fork press that it tells you to do on the package. But I will say, you'll see the finished product here in a minute, and I really thought they were going to hold their shapes more. They did seem a little bit oily, so if you've made these before and you have any advice, please let me know, because I was surprised by how much they expanded. And they may not have turned out perfect, but I can still confidently say that they were very tasty. Good morning, friends. I am a bit under the weather today, but hopefully that means I will be able to take plenty of time reading while I am resting and trying to feel better. But I wanted to hop in and give you an update because I did finish Carmilla, and I do feel like this is a little bit misleading just because, like, the book cover itself for this version says that this is a dark sapphic romance that inspired Dracula. And although there's kind of an obsessive relationship in the book, I definitely wouldn't say that this is a dark sapphic romance. I think there's a dark sapphic obsession, possibly, but I wouldn't say that it's romance. And I would say that the romance, so to speak, happens between two characters that are supposed to be younger. And so, I don't know, that just feels a little misleading to me, but I will say I really did enjoy this. I felt that the setting was really sinister. The way that the book was written definitely gave you a sinister vibe throughout of when is this gonna go wrong? And overall, I thought for a short book, it was really well done. I did rate this 4 stars because I kind of wish it had taken things a step further. But overall, I thought this was really good and I did enjoy it. So if you're wanting to read something that's a little bit more of a classic horror, I definitely would recommend this. I thought it was a good time and it was definitely short and easy to read. But that being said, I'm going to move on to my next book for the vlog, and I'm going to pick up The Ex-Hex because I want to read something that's still witchy but a little bit lighter. So our main character in this book places a hex on her ex-boyfriend after they break up. Naturally, if you were a witch, what else would you do? And she doesn't think that it's going to be super effective, but one thing leads to another and chaos is happening, and so she has to figure out how to undo the curse that she's placed. So this is only like a 300-page book. I think it's going to be a pretty quick, fun read. I will definitely let you know what I think as I get a little further into this one. And in addition to that, I have continued to read The Outsider by Stephen King on audiobook, and I'm about 25% of the way into the book. And I don't feel like I have too much more to say from the last time that I talked about this book. I still feel like I'm in that early stage of the people in the book figuring out that they think they have the person that committed a crime, but there's other evidence that shows that the person definitely couldn't have been there, but all signs are pointing to it being that person. So I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and seeing how they're going to figure out what actually happened. So I feel like I'm still kind of waiting for things to pick up a little bit and to get into what is actually going on in the story. But I definitely will be listening to that some more today. So I will let you know if I have any more updates regarding that book and how I'm feeling as I get further into the book, because I'm really waiting for something to happen that kind of causes things to pick up a little bit more. But those are all my updates for right now. So I'm gonna get into The Ex-Hex and I will let you know when I have an update on either of these books. So this will probably be my final update before we get to the end of the video and my concluding thoughts about everything that I've read for Summerween. But I did finish The Outsider by Stephen King, and I ended up rating it 4.25 stars. So first and foremost, Libby told me that it was a standalone, which I guess technically it is, but it does come after the Bill Hodges trilogy, and Holly does appear in the book. So if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have picked it up to read, but she doesn't appear in the book until after the 50% mark or so. So by that point, I had already invested so much time. I just wanted to continue reading and see how the book finished up. But that was a little bit frustrating because I didn't know that Holly was in the book or that it was part of her story. So if I had known that, I would have picked up something different. But I will say, my biggest complaint about this book is that there is no real mystery surrounding like who done it or who the actual perpetrator is. The title of the book is The Outsider, and I feel like it's pretty clear from the onset when the person that they think committed the crime seems to have been in two places at once that there's something supernatural going on. So that part of the book didn't really feel very suspenseful or thrillery to me. Hi, Zoe. All right. So I was saying that part of the book didn't really feel very suspenseful or like a thriller or mystery to me because I feel that we already kind of have the who done it. We know that the humans that they think are the perpetrators are most likely not the perpetrators. I will say there was a pretty big, like, shocking event that happened after my last update that I didn't really see coming. So that was good because I felt like things were dragging a little bit in the setup, and I was glad that we kind of had something big that happened that disrupted the story. But from there, I will say the horror portions of the book were executed really well. There was a lot that was really grotesque that gave me the same feelings of like body horror and most other books. I wouldn't say that it was all 100% body horror, but it was just stuff that definitely made me uncomfortable, made my skin crawl a little bit. And so that part was executed really well. And then I really liked the characters and how they struggled to come to terms with what was actually happening. And then ultimately, the conclusion of the book I thought left off on a really good note and a really interesting note. But I did rate it 4.25 stars because I don't feel like it really gave me what I was expecting from a mystery thriller because I felt like we already knew who, or at least like what the culprit was going to be from the start of the book. So that aspect of the suspense was really missing. Other than that, I am on page 212 of the X Hex, which just so happens to be 69% of the book, which I felt was very fitting for a very cheeky rom-com that I would have happened to stop at 69% before this last update. But I am planning to read this and finish this up before I give my final thoughts for the vlog. I'm really enjoying the main characters and their relationship, so I'm really excited to finish up the book and see how things turn out and see if our main characters will end up with each other. So I'm very excited to continue reading this, and then I will come back with my final thoughts to let you know how my summerween week has been and remind you about the ratings for all of the books that I've read in the vlog. All right, friends. Well, I finished the X Hex, and I have to say, this was honestly exactly the vibe that I really wanted from this week. This really gave me like Halloween Town, except the characters are actually mature adults with jobs and lives. So I really, really enjoyed this. And honestly, I do have to say, there's something for a rom com that is just really well executed, doesn't do too much or too little. So this definitely was a great way to wrap up my summerween week, and I did end up rating it 4.5 stars. Now, I will say I'm not somebody who seeks out books that have a lot of smut in them, and this one did have some steamy scenes, but there wasn't really a full-on sex scene until much later in the book, and I did feel like it was a little bit unnecessary just at that point in the book because it went on for a few pages. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed this. And I thought that it was pretty well written and just a really fun, light, easy read. So I did finish the X Hex and I rated it 4.5 stars. And with that being said, let's just do a quick review of the other books that I got to this week. So the first book that I finished this week was Guillotine by Delilah Dawson, and I did read that on audiobook. And again, I think there's just something for a really succinct horror when it's well done and it doesn't need to be drawn out. It can be executed so well when done mindfully. And I would say that I really enjoyed this as my first Delilah Dawson read. I did rate it 4.25 stars, and although I didn't get to Bloom this week, I definitely will be picking it up very soon because I'm definitely in the Halloween spirit now, and I'm excited to read more of Delilah Dawson's work. And the second book I finished this week was Everyone on This Train is a Suspect, and that was the sequel to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. And I honestly really enjoyed listening to this one as an audiobook instead of reading the physical copy, which is what I did the first time. I will say that listening to the audiobook definitely helped since the narrator speaks directly to the reader throughout the book, and I found that really interesting. The ending of that book definitely caught me by surprise, and so that's something that most mystery and thrillers kind of fail to do when I read them. So it definitely got higher marks on that from me. And I again rated that one 4.25, which honestly, I think overall I had a really strong reading week with these books, and I think they all rated 4 stars or above. The third book I finished this week was Carmilla, and this one is a little bit more of a literary classic, more of a classic gothic novel. And I did really enjoy this one, but I do think this particular version, claiming that this is a dark sapphic romance, is a little bit misleading. There is some of that intrigue and a little bit of obsession from our character Carmilla, but I wouldn't necessarily call this a romance, especially when the two women involved are young. I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be adults, although Carmilla is a vampire, so obviously she's going to be older. But I will say I found that to be a little bit misleading, and I was expecting something a little bit different from this book. But that being said, as far as classic gothic horror goes, I still thought this was really, really well executed. And it being such a quick and easy read, I would definitely recommend it to anyone wanting to get into the genre. And I did rate this 4 stars overall. And then the third audiobook that I finished this week, so my fourth book in total for the week, was The Outsider by Stephen King. And if you've been around the channel for a while, you would know that I have a lot of Stephen King books on my TBR, and I'm wanting to read a lot more of his work because I have really enjoyed what I have read. And so I was really excited that this was available on Libby to go ahead and snag a copy of. And I do feel slightly misled because Libby said that it was a standalone, which I think technically it is, but the character Holly Gibney does appear later in this book, and she does allude to things that happened in the Bill Hodges trilogy, which I haven't read yet, but I do have on my TBR. So if I had known that, I probably would have waited and not picked this one up just because I do want to read those in continuity. And I do feel like Holly maybe spoiled some things that happen in that trilogy throughout the things that she said in this book. But overall, I still enjoyed the book. That was just a little bit disappointing for me because I didn't know that Holly was going to be in it until about the halfway mark, and I was already super invested, so I wasn't going to stop reading at that point. Now, I will say, as far as thrillers go, this one kind of took a different approach to things because I think, based on the title of the book and the things that are happening, you know from the get go that there's something supernatural going on. So there's not really as much of a whodunit aspect to this one. You're not really trying to put the puzzle pieces together as much as you might be in other thrillers. But I will say, as far as being grotesque and having horror elements, it definitely nailed that. And I still found the characters really interesting and engaging, and I enjoyed witnessing them piecing together the parts of the story, even though it already felt obvious who the culprit was. And I did find the ending to be pretty satisfying. I liked the way that the book ended off, and I felt like it was a little bit ambiguous. So it kind of left you guessing as to what the actual outcome of the situation was. So I did rate this 4.25 stars, even though I do think this was a very different approach to a mystery thriller. And then, of course, as I just mentioned, the last book I got to this week was The X Hex, and this was a perfect little cherry on top of the cake to finish the week off. This was such a fun, light read, and again, I rated it 4.5 stars, and I'm really happy that I finished off the week with something lighter and just fun to really round out summerween. And I can definitely say that I am 100% ready for fall now. I don't want to do anything summer. I just want it to be cool outside. And I'm really, really looking forward to the Halloween season. So I'm so glad that I took the time to have this summerween week this summer, and I am definitely looking forward to fall. Let me know down in the comments if you're reading any summerween books or if you have a favorite horror or thriller novel. I'm always looking for new horror and thriller authors, as that's one of my favorite genres to read. So I would love to hear if you have any that you enjoy. And as always, thank you so, so much for watching this video. I hope you had a great time and I really appreciate you being here. As always, have a good one. Bye.